Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. I am Jeremy Ann Davis, assigned reporter for today. As you can see on the screen, our topic is all about the task of defining globalization. Globalization is not a single concept that can be encompassed within a set time frame, nor is it a process that can be defined clearly with a beginning and an end. Furthermore, it cannot be expounded upon with certainty and be applicable to all people and in all situations. Globalization involves economic integration, the transfer of policies across borders, the transmission of knowledge, cultural stability, the reproduction, relations, and discourse of power. It is a global process, a concept, a revolution, and an establishment of the global market from free socio-political control. At the end of discussion, you, my dear classmates, will know the different definitions of globalization given by different researchers and authors. We'll be able to classify the task of this definition and will apply it in your everyday life. Before we proceed, let me show you some important words that we will encounter on my topic. First, we have integration. Integration is the act or process of uniting different things. Next, migration. Migration is a growing number of people move within countries and across borders, looking for better employment opportunities and better lifestyle. Third, liquidity. The degree to which an asset or security can be quickly bought or sold in the market at a price reflecting its intrinsic value. And last, multidimensional. Includes the maturity or even all areas of social, cultural, political, and economic activities that go beyond the state, its society, and economy. Now, let's move on in our discussion. Since its first appearance in the Webster Dictionary in 1961, many opinions about globalization have flourished. The literature and the definitions of globalization revealed that definitions could be classified as either broad and inclusive or narrow and exclusive. The one offered by Olmey in 1992 stated, globalization means that onset of the borderless world. This is an example of broad and inclusive type of definition. Let us focus first on what broad and inclusive globalization is all about. Broad and inclusive globalization describes the opportunity by which the people or factors behind a certain development in country benefits as well. Understanding the 2 points of views, a broad view and inclusive definitions can see or look for more perspective, which it makes it more an advantage of seeing what's ahead or next from now to avoid future conflicts. Broad globalization is the process of integrating nations and peoples politically, economically, and culturally into a larger community. In this broad sense, it is little different from internationalization. The focus, as the term suggests, is not on nations but on the entire globe. While the inclusive globalization, the purpose of this does not lie only in the opening of the markets for easier trade, but also in expanding the opportunities to those who haven't benefited from it and to promote cooperating countries. The advantage of broad and inclusive globalization are equal growth for the countries and development of the nations. And of course, there's also a disadvantage of broad and inclusive globalization. These are reshaping of government institutions to cater for everyone. Economic processes require recognition and failure to focus on the country's own people and policies. Now let's move to narrow and exclusive definitions. Narrow and exclusive definitions are better justified but can be limiting, in the sense that their application adhere to only particular definition. Robert Koch's definition suits best in this time. The characteristic of globalization trend include the internationalizing of production, the new international division of labor, new migratory movements from south to north, the new competitive environment that accelerates this process, and the internationalizing of the state, making states into agencies of the globalizing world. In addition to this, In the English language, exclusivity is the restriction or the limitation within a group, area, or people. In terms of globalization, narrow and exclusive means that the focus of globalization will be limited to the country alone. No matter how one classifies a definition of globalization, the concept is complex and multifaceted, as the definitions deal with either economic, political, or social dimensions. In fact, in a comprehensive study of 114 definitions by the Geneva Center for Security Policy, or GCSP, in 2006, 67 of them refer to economic dimension either through market expansion or the selling of goods and services. Many of these definitions do, however, include other dimensions. Quite often, they involve political and social aspects as well. However, this does indicate that notions of globalization, at least in our representation, tend to lean toward economic roots of the concept. Should one go about defining globalization? Some academics have determined that it is a useless task. Kumar in 2003 took on a different argumentation about the issue. To him, the debate about what can be done about globalization and what is are similar. His article focuses on the debate regarding the definition of such term and what relation this has to reality. This means that he also needs to be cautious in claiming that some definitions come closer to reality than others. A more recent definition was given by Ritzer in 2015. Globalization is a transplanetary process or a set of processes involving increasing liquidity and the growing multidirectional flows of people, objects, places, and information, as well as the structures they encounter and create that are barriers to or expedite those flows. Generally, this definition assumes that globalization could bring either or both integration and or fragmentation. Although things flow easily in global world, hindrances or structural blocks are also present. These blocks could slow down one's activity in another country or could even limit the places a person can visit. If so, why are we going to spend some time studying this concept? How can we appreciate these definitions? How can this help us understand globalization? First, the perspective of the person who defines globalization shapes its definition. In 1996, Arjuna Padarai said, "Globalization is a world of things that have different speeds, access, points of origin and termination, and varied relationships to institutional structures in different regions, nations, or societies." This captures the complexity of globalization without actually defining it. It implies that further elaboration would not be particularly useful. And that's it, no need to elaborate. Second, sociologist Cesare Papi contributes a thought in this regard. The literature stemming from the debate on globalization has grown in the last decade beyond any individual's capability of extracting a workable definition of the concept. In a sense, the meaning of the concept is self-evident. In another, it is vague and obscure as its reaches are wide and constantly shifting. Perhaps, more than any other concept, globalization is the debate about it. The debate surrounding globalization is large part of its lifeblood. Without it, there would be no need for paper of this nature, nor would be the sources to pull together so many definitions. Papi is correct. Globalization is the debate, and the debate is globalization. Without one, the other is inconceivable. Third, globalization is reality. It is a changing human society develops, we should expect to continue to happen in the future. The future of globalization is so hard to predict. What we could expect in the coming years is what has happened over the past 50 years, and it is the fluidity and complexity of globalization as a concept which made more debates, discussion, and definitions than agreement on it. Overall, globalization is a concept that is not easy to define because in reality, globalization has a shifting nature. It is a complex, multifaceted, and can be influenced by the people who define it. Moreover, the issues and concerns involving globalization have a wide range, from the individual to the society, from small costs it could carry. In his article, The Globalization of Nothing, Ritzer in 2003 said, attitudes toward globalization depend, among other things, on whether one gains or loses from it. Nevertheless, the task of defining globalization should stimulate more discussions about it. More importantly, the fact that we experience globalization should give one the interest of engaging in the study of it. Finally, I'd like to highlight one key issue. As a student or as a future educator, we must look to it that globalization means we have to examine some of our ideas and look at ideas from other countries, from the cultures, and open ourselves to them. We must create a kind of globalization that works for everyone and not just for a few. And that's the end of my discussion. Thank you for listening and hope you have a lesson learned. Let's proceed on our group chat for some clarifications about my topic. God bless!